Hello and welcome to episode 380 of the Stacey West Podcast. It is the penultimate podcast of the season, of the full season, because we're previewing the last game. We'll review the last game, and that'll be technically the last podcast. I am one of your hosts, Gary. I haven't been on all that much recently, and I am joined by a partner in crime, Chris Lamming. How are you?
Hello, mate. Yeah, very well, very well. It feels a while since I've been on with you, to be honest. I know you said you haven't been here for a little, I've missed a couple. I just feel like it's a long time since it was you and me. Maybe it's been ages, or maybe it just wasn't that memorable last time. It could be one of the two. But how are you?
We did it with Emily.
Of course. Yeah, I meant just you and I. Yeah, I meant just you and I.
It's been a while. I think it's been a while since I've done one. So yeah, how are you? But what have you been up to? Anything interesting in the scorching weather?
Not particularly. I went shopping today. I finished work a little bit early, which was lovely in the sunshine. I was in Lincoln today as well. I was actually in the office, and me and Joe. It must be getting the end of the football season because I'm getting to the point where I'm quite happy to get the golf clubs out again because I am very much a fair weather golfer. So we're going for a round of golf tomorrow after work, and I realised I don't have any golf balls. Didn't have a golf glove. Don't have any shorts that would be suitable or any t-shirts that would be suitable. So I had to go and buy a few bits and bobs after work today. So that was quite exciting because I love shopping. So yeah, that's been the highlight of my week really, was getting to walk around in the sunshine this afternoon for a couple of hours when I would normally be working. But yeah, what have you been up to? I can't think if there's anything of note really been going on in your life, but I might as well ask to see if there is any interesting stories your end.
Well, I've done some shopping. I bought some trainer socks and a new black running top because at the weekend I had a black running top, but I've ironed my name onto it, and I don't want to run that around here. It's useful when you need identifying in amidst a record-breaking number of runners that finish the London Marathon, but not so much when you're running the streets of Whitcall. So yes, my first podcast, obviously. Since running the marathon. Thank you for asking. Yesterday I actually met Henry Winter, who, it's one of the most influential sports journalists of the last 30 years. And it was quite funny because I'd been teaching at LSST at the ground, but teaching the Priory pupils. And I was told as I was leaving, Henry Winter's coming shortly. I'm going to meet him soon. We're going to do Fighting Fit. And I was like, love to meet him kind of thing, but I thought I can't really drag my heels. And I wwent downstairs. There was nobody on the foundation reception. I opened the door and there was Henry Winter stood there looking a little bit confused on his own. So I'm like, I was like, do you want to come in? I'll find somebody for you. Who can I say it is, please? Just to double check. And he's like, it's Henry Winter. So he read my piece on the marathon and it was. He's then mentioned myself and Jasper on his podcast this week as well. And for those who don't know, and I'm sure there may be some, but Henry Winter's a sports journalist. He works for World Soccer now, but he's worked for the big papers. He's won Journalist of the Year 5 or 6 times. 1.3 million followers on Twitter. He's in football journalist terms, it's quite big. If you were a YT player at Dorking, it's probably the equivalent of bumping into Lionel Messi in your local supermarket. So it was quite exciting.
Yeah, that's a big moment. I couldn't believe it when you said that earlier. Was it earlier today? Yesterday, wasn't it?
Yesterday, yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Like this, what a perfect storm though, because just meeting him anyway would be amazing. But to have in fairness, a remarkable story to share as well must have been a nice icing on the cake. So go on. Here is your moment, guys. Tell us all about it. Because I did read your article on the London Marathon, and it was really good. Like, we generally say that we're good friends are probably a little bit harsh to each other's faces and quite nice behind their back, but I think we have to draw an exception to that rule. Like in all seriousness, mate, it was a brilliant read. Obviously a huge achievement. So, I don't want to make a habit of saying too many nice things to you, but yeah, credit where it's due. You smashed that, raised a load of money for a great cause. But yeah, how was it? How was it for you?
Yeah, it was simultaneously the best and worst experience of my life. almost certainly. I like Roy Rogers saying, "Hurry up, Gaz, get over with it, get it over with." Cheers, Roy. Thanks for that, mate. That's how I felt about 15 miles. It's kind of like a major event at first, and rather than like a marathon, it's like you're going to a big concert or something. There's so many people about and so much organisation and all that sort of stuff. And for me, the fear was getting to the start line. From the start line onwards, it was you know where you're going, and that how far you've got to go as well. So yeah, I mean, it was just like going for a run until I pushed beyond the miles that I've done before, and those last kind of 6 miles, and it's from before the Tower of London and then all the way along to Big Ben and that sort of thing. That was grueling, really grueling. So I didn't get anywhere near the time I wanted. I was 25 minutes slower. Obviously, there was some intense heat. The course was packed, and there's a lot of little things you don't think about beforehand, which I didn't think about and didn't know, kind of like refueling water, for instance. So I thought I'd use the water stations rather than carrying any water with me. So they're at every 5K, but I missed one. And so then you've run 10K without any water in that sort of heat, and that was really tough. They had Lucozade stations, but people were spilling it. And then for 100, 200 meters afterwards, the road was really sticky. But you know what? The biggest thing for me is just the people of London, because I went out on Sunday after the gig with somebody that runs the firearms unit protecting the royal family. So pretty big, kind of serious person. And her point was the London Marathon is brilliant because it's the one day in 365 where Londoners aren't all just trying to kill each other. They all come out, they stand, everybody's together. You get this real feel of London. And I put that in my article. I can't stress it enough. Running through Rotherhithe and Bermondsey and the Isle of Dogs and Millwall Fire Station and places like that was better than running past Big Ben and running past Parliament. Because you know me, I love social media, but I'm not one for selfies in front of Big Ben when I'm running or do like, oh, here I am at the Tower of London. I was focused. I wanted to do the marathon. And I got really, really hacked off with people kind of taking selfies and things. It's like, this is a race. Do you know what I mean? You're meant to be going around this as quick as you can. And they're all there, cocking their one leg out, all smiling and stuff. And it was doing my head in. But round Bermondsey and Rotherhithe, the people were incredible. Absolutely incredible. So, yeah, and that, I dreamed for weeks and weeks, months and months, what it would be like to come around and see the finish. And I had this thing in my mind of stretching my arms out and all this achievement hitting me and Buckingham Palace behind me and the roaring crowds. When I came around that corner and I saw that it was another 200 meters till I could stop running, genuinely, I could see why people collapsed towards the end. I really can. I just wanted to come around the corner and go through it. So, but yeah, it's good. I've been out for 2 runs since. Saturday morning, I'm planning on running to Rugby again. So business as usual. But thank you. Sorry, I should have said that. Thank you to everybody listening, watching, all that sort of stuff. Everyone who sponsored me, it's been phenomenal. The final total is not yet in. Last time I checked, it was at 6,300. A shirt has just sold for £200. There's another one that I think will go for £200 to £300. Then there's the book launch as well. So I'm expecting to be over £7,000. That's going to make a lot of difference to people's lives in Lincoln with the foundation's good work. So
absolutely right. Yeah, good. And we have a little rule, and I always fall foul of this, ladies and gentlemen, of that we try not to any of us individually talking for much more than a minute at a time. So I'm pretty sure that's a record there, Gaz, that you've broken. So you can't tell me to hurry up at any point later today.
No chance. No chance. There is another rule that we have as well. We have another rule that we don't tend to be nice to each other face to face. So I'm going to take an opportunity to be nice to somebody that's not on the show today, and that's Ben, because Ben and Rachel were the only people I'm not directly related to who came down to the London Marathon specifically for me, and I saw them for 10 seconds on the corner as I went round to Tower Bridge, and I really needed that, and it was incredibly touching that they braved the crowds and came down. And all that sort of stuff. So that's my nice word for Ben this year. That's done and dusted. I'm pleased that's out of the way. Get it over and done with in May. It means that I've got plenty of time. But no, it meant a huge amount. My only question is, what the fuck were the rest of you doing?
I was at Donington Park watching the touring cars with my old man. So that, I'm afraid, yeah, that trumps the London Marathon. Sorry, mate. It was good fun.
Yeah. All right, I'll let you off.
And Charlie, no excuse. He's only in
Yeah,
Gibraltar.
Charlie, no excuse. He flies over from Gibraltar when it's all about him, doesn't he? Anyway, we'll stop talking about the London Marathon now. There will be a book coming out where you can read all about it, and that'll raise money.
I thought we were stopping talking about London Marathon.
I'm talking about the book now. It's different. The book is about the training and everything. We'll talk about football because it is the final game of the 2024-25 season. Lincoln City need a point or more to match or beat the record that Mark Kennedy's Imps had in 2022-23, which was 11th with 62 points. I think at the minute we're 11th on 61 points. So it's going to be more or less a like-for-like season, give or take a point, give or take a goal. So there's not an awful lot riding on it, but I am trying to build it up a little bit. There's actually nothing riding on it for our visitors, Wrexham, who will be playing Championship football next season. Sickly as this may be, congratulations to them for that. Just before we even preview the game, can I just say, I'm actually pleased it's Wrexham that have gone up, because it's cringe, but they're a proper club. Strip away the Hollywood. They're a proper club. They're not a Fleetwood or a Forest Green or somebody else that's been artificially inflated. Yes, they've been backed, but they've been backed in a way that has generated them plenty of income. And they're a club that have got a long and rich history going back many, many years. They're what I call a proper club, like York City, like us, like Shrewsbury Town, like Northampton Town, proper clubs rather than a Fleetwood or a Bromley and stuff like that. And shouldn't be disrespectful probably to Bromley because they've done it a bit differently. So I don't care about the Hollywood razzmatazz. I didn't ever want to ruin their party anyway, to be honest.
I was torn, to be honest with you, because I don't want this to come across as kind of overly negative towards Wrexham, because I'm with you in that they are a proper football club, and when they were down in the National League and struggling, you kind of think, they've been down, they've done their stint down there now. They deserve that time to come back out and thrive back in the Football League. I just don't necessarily like I don't know if the Hollywood fits, and does that take a little bit away from the proper club element? And I think it's more it's the financial side of it for me. You know me, you guys that are listening, and Gaz as well, in that I always like the underdog, and I like it when teams overachieve, and I like it when money isn't the be all and end all. And yeah, there's one way of spending them. There's one thing spending the money, and there's another thing using it wisely. And they have used the money that they've generated wisely. They had a top 2 budget, and they finished in the top 2. Mission accomplished. They have done exactly what they should do, and congratulations for that, because there's plenty of teams who have spent big and failed. But I'm just not a massive fan of the Hollywood, to be honest. I like the documentary. I think it's put together well, but I wouldn't want it to be us. So credit to them. From a Lincoln City perspective, I'm pleased that it's Wrexham going up, because it means that we're not going to have that same challenge of them in the league next season. But yeah, I'll welcome them to Central Bank. I think it'll be a good day for everyone involved. There'll be a bit of a party for them. There'll be hopefully a bit of positivity for us. But honestly, it won't matter too much. But I would just like to put a little dent in there at the end of their season, and I would love for us to finish on a high. And I think us beating a team of the stature that Wrexham now are would be a nice way and a nice positive end to the season.
The only thing I want is for Michael Scabala's first full season in charge to trump Mark Kennedy's. Basically, I don't want to, because obviously I don't know if he listens to the podcast, but a guy I love having a bit of banter with, Marcus Clayson, who despised Michael Appleton, kind of sticks up for Mark Kennedy a little bit, and there's other people that kind of like Kennedy over Scabala, which is mental. And I just don't want people to have ammunition to come back and say that this is the worst season post kind of Michael Appleton. I really don't want that. So I want the win for Michael Scabala. We are going to win. We're going to win 4-2. Just as they won 4-2 on the final day of the season that they were relegated back, I think, in 2007-08. They mentioned that quite a bit. It's quite poignant for them that the place where they were relegated is the place where they'll be promoted. They were already promoted, but, the final game in League One. But for us, it's very much, we're focused on Lincoln City. We're a Lincoln City podcast. We do have a preview. We will come on to that. It'll be in the second half of the show. Before that, we talk about the first half of the show. And you've heard an interesting snippet in Michael Scabala's press conference today, haven't you, that you kind of wanted to pick up on and discuss?
Yes, there's a couple of things that you mentioned. One was on your favourite subject. We'll just do this first. Actually, I didn't mention this before the podcast, but you mentioned Sean Rowan, so you'll be all aboard for this. But I think
Super Sean, yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah, my apologies. Of course, Super Sean Rowan. But this is amazing. In all seriousness, if Sean starts and completes 90 minutes on Saturday, he'll have completed every single league minute this season, and that's outstanding. That's outstanding for anyone. But for someone of his age and relative inexperience, obviously he's an experienced player now because of his number of appearances, but by his age, he isn't. That's just a remarkable achievement. So I really, really hope that happens.
Let me comment on that before you go on to the other.
Oh, of course,
because
of course.
I genuinely think, and that's not just because I'm going to be slathering over Sean Rowan. It's not, my admiration of Sean Rowan is based on the fact that he's the most underrated player in our squad. We're talking about a player here who's 22 years old. As you've just said, will most likely complete every single minute of the season, playing in a position where he's could be likely to pick up bookings, often on the right side, on the left side of a back three, but he hasn't. Playing on a position as well when he's trying to get forward, where there's a huge amount of physical exertion, getting up the line in an attacking sense, getting back down the line in a defensive sense, and remaining completely injury-free. Honestly, I genuinely think that he should be a major candidate for Player of the Year. And I hear people talking to me about Paudie O'Connor being a potential Player of the Year. 3 suspensions this season, and that's from a leader. And for me, Sean might not be an obvious leader on the field in terms of vocal or whatever, but a leader also leads by example. And in terms of fitness and in terms of application, in terms of discipline, Sean Rowan has been a leader in every single one of those instances. And leading into what you're about to say, if he were to be playing his last game for Lincoln City tomorrow, he deserves a bigger ovation than any of the other players who may be playing their last game. But you had a little bit of something on that I've kind of jumped ahead of, didn't you?
Yeah, we're going to be a little bit higgled and piggledy because I wanted to just finish off with Sean Rowan before I touch on that, because I don't want to kind of double dip, because we did a bit of a deep dive last week, Charlie and I, on Sean. But I'm guessing you won't have heard this, but you just mentioned that in a position where he's likely to pick up bookings, he's likely to give away fouls, he's likely to pick up injuries, and I know you know most things about Sean, but this might surprise you, right? In the whole season, league season, so 45 matches so far, Sean Rowan has only committed 22 fouls, and he's won 37 of them. I think that's just an incredible stat for someone that's playing as a defender, as particularly outside centre back or wing or full back, where he's going to be literally one-on-one defending a lot of the time. But yes, if you would like to, if you're also Sean Rowan supporters and would like to hear about some fantastic statistics that show that Sean Rowan is really good, then listen to last week's podcast with me and Charlie, because we spent about half an hour talking about it. But what I did say, Gaz, off the back of that pod is, I think my decision of who I would pick for Player of the Season has probably changed after doing that slightly deeper dive into some of those metrics with Sean. But yes, the other part of the press conference that stood out from Michael Skubala was when Michael Horton asked him about players that are out of contract, potentially leaving the club, etc. He didn't really give anything away. He said that there are still just discussions being had, conversations being had. There are a lot of moving parts, etc. And this may have just been an off-the-cuff comment, but there might have been something in it, because he did mention that we might be seeing some players for the last time in a Lincoln City shirt on Saturday afternoon. So I thought it would be worth us just discussing who might that potentially be moving into the summer.
Well, should we do a little list?
Let's do a list.
Might potentially be. So we'll start with Paudie O'Connor. He's almost certainly one that I think he's playing his last game for Lincoln tomorrow. Pure and simple. Because the other ones that we're going to be talking about are potentially triggering extensions, or they're a Sean Rowan where there's complications. But the only one that we know for a fact is out of contract and we don't have the extension to trigger is Paudie O'Connor. So Paudie is the one that is likely to be playing his last game. If he were to be signing a new contract, you would expect that to have already happened, in my opinion. If you're the captain, I might be wrong. So I think he is the first one that we can talk about as potentially going at the end of the season. He would obviously be a loss. As I say, I do have a little bugbear about those suspensions. And I know that we can look at the Carl Piergiani one and say that was probably a little bit harsh, but you've still got involved in something, even if it was fished for. 10 bookings, okay. Yeah, okay, because he's the one that's meant to be doing the mouthing off on everyone else's behalf. And then the second red card, it escapes me who it was against, but it was late on in that game where he's kind of hacked. Was it Leighton Orient? Where he's kind of hacked away quite late on. That it wasn't Leighton Orient, no. But that really, that really bothered me. That one, because I think it was a wholly unavoidable red card. It won't. For me, it won't detract from his legacy. He's been a solid footballer for Lincoln. He's been an outstanding servant, but at the same time, I do think that he is replaceable.
Yeah, and we probably wouldn't have thought that even just a few months ago. I do think that taking his recent suspension away from this, because I think that maybe tarnishes things in terms of recency bias just a little bit, but taking that out of it, he's been an outstanding player for us. I think he's been a real leader, makes so many first contacts. I think I felt we would miss him hugely, and we will miss him. However, I think the shape change helps. I think the fact that we were playing a back three, he was that centre of the three, and he was that dominant centre back in the middle. And we were fearing that we were going to have to pretty much reshape almost all of our backline for next season. With us moving to a 4 now, and that of course requires 2 centre backs, it does require a slightly different skill set, and I just feel we're slightly more capable of plugging the gap already, partly because of sheer numbers, but also just in terms of partnerships and kind of the skill sets of the other players. I think it's not going to leave as big a hole as it could do if we were still wedded to a back three system. So for that, I think he's replaceable in that regard. Do I think we could directly replace his current ability with a player that's just as good as he is right now for the cost that he is, like his current wages are? No, I don't think that's possible at all. The whole reason he's likely to leave is because of his ability now relative to what it was when he first joined us. However, do I think we can sign that style of centre-back, maybe at the age that Pordy was when we signed Pordy, that maybe isn't necessarily the most technical footballer, but has the aggression and that kind of, I suppose, your old school centre back traits? Can we replace that element? Yeah, I think we can. But I think the reason that we're not going to be, or we're going to find it very difficult to keep hold of Pordy, is because what we're paying him right now is the contract he signed when he joined as a League Two player at the end of his contract at Bradford, and he's proven to be one of the highest performing centre backs in his role in the league, and therefore his value in terms of wages is just significantly higher than what he's being paid right now, and most likely significantly higher than what we can afford. If that wasn't the case, we'd be able to offer him a new deal and he'd sign it tomorrow. So I don't think he's directly replaceable in terms of direct ability or proven ability at League One, but could we replace that style of centre-back? Yes. And I don't think it leaves as big a hole as it maybe I feared it would do 3 or 4 months ago.
One other thing on Pordy, just for people to run around in their head, I don't think he's not signing a deal is necessarily purely about money. I don't think that Pordy is looking for the best financial deal for him. He's 27. If he wants to play in the Championship, he's got 2 options: go to a Championship team in the summer and fight for a place, or the most likely option, remain in this division but go to a side that are likely to be fighting for promotion. And I think that's what we'll see. I think we'll see him do what Regan Poole did. When Regan Poole left, it wasn't only about money. Regan Poole wanted to play Championship football, and Portsmouth were likely to be challenging at the top of the table. And he's now played Championship football despite his injury. And I think the same for Pordy. We've touched on Sean.
But yeah, just quickly on that, I just think just financially, though, whoever he goes to that fits that bill are still going to be able to offer significantly more than we can. Whether it's the most that of all of his offers, I get your point. It's probably not going to be his only thought process. He doesn't seem that sort of chap, does he? But ultimately, I forgot what I was saying. Ultimately, he'll be paid more than we can afford to pay if he goes to another League One club.
So other players that may be playing their last game, and I'm conscious we're on 24 minutes and around 31 minutes, we've got to take a break so that I can go and put my dinner on. We're going to leave Sean Rowan, I think, because we've touched on Sean Rowan.
Yeah.
Rico Hackett. is a 3-year deal. So he is not one. He signed a 3-year deal, so he's not one that's out of contract. People have mistakenly suggested that's the case, but the likelihood is he will be here. Adam Jackson, I think, is the other one. Was it mentioned the other day in an interview that we had an option on Adam Jackson should we wish to take it? He's 31 years old. He's been a great servant to the club. He's only started 26 league games this season, though, that injury at Rotherham, where he took a blatant smash to the face, pretty nasty. But he's one that we could be seeing for the last time as well.
Yes, and this is an honesty shout, really. If you'd asked me this question, do I feel that we should activate Adam Jackson's 1-year extension 3 months ago, I would maybe think, we could maybe reinvest that wage, part of the wage bill, elsewhere. But he's been outstanding since we moved to a back four. He really has. Outstanding, and been every inch of the player that we know he can be. And, I think Michael's been mentioning for the last few weeks that we've been giving players chances. We've been rotating the team a little bit with one eye on next season. Every time Jacko's plays, he's been absolutely outstanding. Even on the ball, I made that point, I think, last week. I was particularly impressed with him on the ball against, who did we beat? Bolton. Yeah, against Bolton. He was brilliant on the ball, as well as his defending. He's not known for being good on the ball, but that really stood out to me as something that I think maybe went under the radar a little bit. So, yeah, for me, just an opinion piece, really, I'd absolutely be taking that option. Dependable centre-back, certainly.
Who do you think, then? Potential less games?
Pawdy would be my
so nobody else. You haven't
guarantees. The other one is Ben House, of course, isn't he? Who's out of contracts, but we believe there is a 1-year extension option for the club. Again, we're not 100% sure, but we think so because that was mentioned loosely by Radio Lincolnshire recently. I would 100% be signing Ben House. I think he suits that 10 role brilliantly in a different profile than maybe like a Jack Moylan would do or Rico Hackett when he's played in there. We've played in there against the teams with a stronger defensive midfielder, and I think he offers a very, very different profile and skill set. But I think it's a profile in that role that not many teams have. So yeah, does he need to maybe improve a little bit on the ball and in terms of assists and goals? Yes, he does. Obviously, scoring on Saturday against Stockport helped. It was a brilliant first half goal for him. But for me, it's almost a no-brainer to sign Ben House. And I know we had a few question marks over him maybe again a few months ago, but I really can see the value in him being in the squad in that number 10 role. Do I think he's going to be a guaranteed starter? No, I don't. But I think he offers a very viable option in that role in certain matches. So for me, it could be Ben House, but I really hope to see him in a Lincolnshire again next season.
There are two others who we can mention. The first one is obviously Ethan Arahan, for a different reason to the others. But Ethan is a saleable asset. Probably not had the season he wished, but still looks a cut above most players when he's on the pitch. Probably the optimal summer to sell him throughout his contract because he's still got plenty left. But obviously, if he gets to next season, potentially that could begin to run down. We think that the fee is likely to be around the 1.2, 1.3 million pound mark. If somebody comes in with that, we're likely to go, yeah, okay. Likely that will happen this summer. And there are a couple of options here. You'll look at the teams coming down. Will they be able to spend? Well, if Luton come down, who were linked with Arahan before, they will still have the Premier League parachute payment. Going to be slightly different with the salary cap management protocol and how much you can afford, but you would imagine that would be an option. Or, of course, any of the other teams kind of towards the bottom end, I think, of the Championship who have struggled. So if a Preston North End stay up, for instance, he could be somebody that goes there and does well. I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't the last time we see Ethan Arahan in a Lincoln shirt against Wrexham.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, this is kind of the heart over head, isn't it? Because my heart wants us to keep our best players. We want to see the value on the pitch. Ethan Arahan is our best footballer. He's the most talented player in our squad. He's brilliant. We all know his ability. But it was a big fee. By our standards, the 200,000-ish fee that we paid for him from St Mirren was a big sum of money for us. That's a big transfer. We normally pay 5 figures if we're making signings. It's very rare for us to make 6-figure transfer fees. But we saw it as almost like that kind of A-star signing, didn't we? He's someone who could improve our 11 straight away, but also had brilliant sell-on value. It's almost a no-brainer and a great investment. But it only becomes a great investment if you get the income at the other end of it, and you've got to pick those times right. And yeah, if Ethan is with us next season, I'll be delighted because it means we've retained our best player. However, does it make logical sense for us to cash in? Should there be a buyer that's willing to pay the agreed amount between agent, club, player? Yeah, I think it makes sense for us to cash in on Ethan here. Sadly, but like that's the club, isn't it? That's the model. That's what we want, and that 1.2 million would go a hell of a long way. Not just on the pitch, but off the pitch too, in terms of infrastructure and fan experience, as well as, of course, helping us improve the team on the pitch. So, yeah, I think it might be him.
Sorry, there's what looks like a leg of lamb flying around in here that keeps dive bombing me. It's bloody massive. Now there is one other player, and this is really up for discussion, I could see being the subject of interest this summer, and I'll back it up, and therefore it could be the last time that we see him in Lincolnshire. But he's somebody who signed a new deal recently, but our change in formation and returning players could make it difficult for him to have the opportunities he's had this season, which have been limited. You're nodding because you probably know who it is. Rob Street's been playing as the single striker in a 4-2-3-1 at Doncaster and has scored 10 goals in League Two. He's done well. He's going to come back to the club, and with a 4-year deal, you would expect that he will be somebody who should be trouble in the first team next season. James Collins should be our first team striker next season. That leaves Freddie Draper in quite a tough position. Now, we'd have to, if you're rotating Collins and let's say one of the others, Street, potentially there's room for Fred to come in. Don't think Fred's had a bad season, 4 goals from something like 27 substitute appearances and a handful of starts is particularly good. But here's the kicker for me. Walsall were running away with League Two when they had the final piece of the puzzle, which was the boy from Stoke, Nathan Lowe. Lowe, he gets recalled, Walsall plummet. If they're looking at next season and keeping as much of that team together as possible, they need the final piece of that jigsaw. They know Fred very well. If they came forward, let's say, with a £500,000 bid, and it would be big for League Two, but we're not talking about one of the skint League Two sides here. We're talking about a big League Two side who, let's be honest, are a League One side in waiting. That's Walsall. They're probably outside the top 3 divisions for the longest period in their history so far. Something like that. I think that there could be a bid from them for Fred, and whether that would be tempting or not, given our position. I'm not saying I think he's going to go, hand on heart, but he probably won't. But I think he is one that you could look at having interest in this summer, and one that we might be willing to cash that interest in on.
Great point. I like this. This is a good question, because my heart would say I'd love to keep Fred, because James Collins has been outstanding for the half of the season he's been here. Expect him to be our preferred forwards next season. We have learnt that it's unlikely he's going to be starting and playing 90 minutes in every game, particularly if we have 2 games a week, which is a big chunk of the season, of course. So whoever's playing second fiddle, if you like, maybe Rob Street, maybe Fred, to James, is going to get plenty of game time if there's one other. But with 3, then that game time might be slightly limited. I think there's a couple of caveats. Number one is that if you're playing one up top, you will carry 3 strikers in your squad. I think it would be unwise to only carry 2 and not have a backup if one gets injured. And the other caveat is that Rob Street, albeit has played as that lone striker for Doncaster, is more than capable of playing as a Jovan Makama style winger, like inside forward breaking lines, particularly as we've seen recently when James Collins drops slightly deep to get the ball in behind, gets the ball deep. He's a great winner in behind to exploit that space. Obviously not quite to the same level, but similar to when Liverpool had Mane and Firmino playing and Salah. You often found Firmino's dropping in, and then that space was invaded, if you like, by Mane. I think Rob Street could fill that sort of role so has the ability to come on as a wide substitute potentially, or play in that wide role. Whereas Fred, obviously, he's going to play up top or nowhere. So I suppose the question is, how patient is Freddie? Because realistically, at the end of next season, James Collins is out of contract. He'll be 35 going into 36 at that point. Yeah, we don't know how successful he's going to be next season. We hope he continues like this. But, that he's another year and a half older than when we signed him. He's out of contract then, albeit with a year option. That might be Fred's chance to then stake a claim for him and then Rob Street to battle it out for the number 9 spot the season after next. Is he patient enough to do that? I don't know, Fred, obviously, so I don't know. I hope he is. I hope he'll get plenty of opportunities in terms of rotation, but he might be thinking, I've been on the bench for a season pretty much here, hasn't he? He had a great spell at Walsall last season for the first half. I think he scored 10 goals, didn't he, in that first half of the season? Realistically, Walsall's probably the only team that would realistically want to sign him that's coming up into League One if they get promoted, which they still might. If they do, it will be a good opportunity for Fred personally to still play League One football, but be a starting centre forward. That makes sense. If they don't come up, I don't know if he'd want to do that. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Mine's the other way around. If they come up, I don't think we sell. If they stay in League Two, we're more likely, if a bid came in, to sell, because he wouldn't be directly affecting us. And the club would also look at that potential for him to be doing damage to us. Look, we're 36 minutes in. I've got to go and sort some dinner out. So what we'll do, we'll go to a commercial break. And then when we come back, we will be previewing Wrexham.
Absolutely. So I'm going to try and do something that I don't normally do here. I've got to try and work out how to bring the comments up. So hello. Oh, that's how you do it. Look.
I'll let you do that quickly while I sort the dinner. It's going to be 2 minutes.
So hello YouTube. Hello everybody. So that's Ben. Welcome Ben. Welcome Andy, Jonathan, Steve. Oh, we're busy tonight, guys. Roy, nice to see you. Gary isn't here, so I'll put it up now so he doesn't see it. I'm sure he saw it earlier, Andy. Flossie, you're in, and they've changed the profile picture. Who else have we got here? Plenty of other people saying hello. We've got Harry saying hello. We've got enjoy your fishing. M Spokes. Welcome everybody. We've got a Wrexham fan. Hello. I don't mean to correct you, David, but and I can't officially say how we get our information, but we are 100% accurate that Wrexham had a top 2 wage budget this season. Maybe not necessarily in terms of transfers, but certainly in terms of wage. It's not a kick. It's not a punch down or up. It's just fact. Who else have we got here? Jonathan reckons that he could see Ethan O'Rourke going to a decent Scottish Premier side. That's an interesting shout. Now, is he Rangers or Celtic standard? I don't know if Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs would have the finances to justify spending over £1 million on one player. Maybe they would. And then we've got some other interesting...
I can see you're having fun. Just to be really clear, I definitely need to finish at 6:30 because I've got some reprobates coming over to play pool. So I'm
one of those reprobates.
So thank you to everybody in the comments. Our apologies if we haven't mentioned your comment, but we are on a little bit of a time scale here.
So we'll go back. I've done that ever.
Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I did. Thanks. Yeah, I did.
So what we're going to do, we're going to go back in to the show in what we're going to do, 36:25, 38:25. Hello and welcome back to episode 380 of the Stacey West Podcast. We've heard all about Lincoln. This is the bit where we talk about Wrexham, and all of a sudden the algorithms throw a million different people our way, from people living in everywhere from Idaho to Illinois, from Utah to Arizona. I can't believe I've not managed to pick a state there that begins with a consonant. They were all vowels, please. We have had a podcast, a Wrexham podcast on. Ben has sent us the details, but he has not told me who it is. So we will tell you who it is afterwards when he messages me.
I know who it is, Gary.
Oh, go on.
It's Tim. It's Tim from Fearless in Devotion. I listened to this earlier. It's really good. Thank you for Tim. He was really good on this.
Tim was the guy who put the post on about Lincoln and how it was poignant coming here and how he'd had a nice experience with Lincoln fans who were sympathetic when they went down. So, yeah, Tim from Fearless in Devotion. And Ben has opened by asking any players other than Max Cleworth that have shone this season.
Oh, there's quite a few that you'd put up for player of the season. Arthur, the Conquer and goal's been tremendous. I can't remember how many clean sheets he's got now, but it's quite a lot. And there's rumours circulating today that he might be due or receiving a Nigeria call-up, which would be amazing. Especially now, it's kind of dawned on all of us that we now qualify for an international break. So there'll be no Wrexham Wales clashes. He can go to both. So, so there's none of those happening now, or entering the FA Cup until the third round, all these crazy things that you benefit from. So him is definitely up there. Ollie Rathbone's been unbelievably good. He's probably going to win player of the season, midfielder. Just got him from Rotherham, and he's just almost like a throwback to an old all-action midfielder where he will appear from nowhere and steal the ball off you. When you're at school and you're trying to show off and do a couple and dribble, and then your mate nicks it off you from behind you. He's that sort of player, and you think, you bastard, you just made me look absolutely foolish in front of 12,000 people. So I love that. I love that about him. He just loves it. He just loves it. He's like, classic street footballer type that just plays it for the love of the game, and anything else is just a bonus, really. So he's been great. So probably those three stand out. Ryan Barnett again was in was in team of the season. Lots of assists early part of the year. Then Ryan Longman came in from Hull and kind of challenged him for that spot. So that's been more competitive on that side. But again, still a very good player. And I'm gonna, just for shit-ass purposes, I'm gonna chuck James McLean in there, because despite his age and very placid, well-meaning demeanour, he's been great. He's captained us to promotion to the championship. Every time I say it, I have to laugh because it just doesn't. It's just weird, man. It's so weird, honestly.
It'll compute at some point.
I'm sure it will, but it's just like I say it, I laugh because it's not nervous laughter. It's like disbelieving internal chaos, because I'm like, what has happened and what is about to happen? And then when we get pumped in the first 4 games or something, and then people go, oh, what's this losing lark? And they start, and then all of a sudden the fan base resets a little bit. So it'd be very interesting. There's so many dynamics to come out of what might or might not happen in the next few months, I guess, August time onwards.
Thank you for Tim from Fearless in Devotion. One thing I'll say, another controversial decision, I quite like James McLean. Personally, I think he's a good player. Nearly signed for us. Got homesick. Went home after a day. If he had, I would have backed him. And I would say his decision not to wear a poppy is his decision. All the people that say keep politics out of football when it comes to taking the knee or wearing rainbow laces are not so quick to keep politics out of football when they're having a pop at James McLean for not wearing a poppy. So, each their own.
You know what? I'm with you on the whole poppy thing. I completely understand his reasoning and respect it. I can't say I particularly like him from what I've seen as a person not as a player, I don't know as a person, as a player. He's a frustrating player to play against, isn't he? But fully respect and understand his poppy thing. You know what? Of Tim's interview there, I think something is just really refreshing from a club that's been promoted out of this division is just the sheer humbleness of him. And I fully expect him to be a kind of embodiment of the overall fan base, because the amount of times that we get, promotion challenging clubs come on our podcast. This isn't necessarily a dig at them, but it's just you get that sense of entitlement that they're too big for the division. They feel like they have this divine right to get promoted, and it's little old Lincoln that they're playing against. And don't get me wrong, we kind of quite like that, playing that underdog. But I found it so refreshing of Tim's demeanour there, in how kind of just the disbelief of, hang on, we're going in the championship now, because that's exactly how we'd be, isn't it? If it happened to us, that's exactly how we'd be. Like, how the hell has this happened? It's bizarre. So I really enjoyed that. It was a really good interview. Thank you for Tim for coming along and doing that. So shall we preview the match though, in terms of what can we expect on the pitch? It's a strange one though, isn't it?
First of all, there's a reason why he's probably humble, and that's because it's only 2 years ago that they were beating Boreham Wood 3-1 in April 2023. So, and you say you can never look back at where you've come from and all that sort of stuff. But when you've played Wealdstone and Maidenhead and Altrincham and teams like that in the league little over 2 years ago, and next season they're going to be playing, Southampton and Leicester and teams like that. So you can be humble. But yeah, there's a football match. We were accused, by we, not me, because I didn't do the podcast, but there was an accusation that the post-Stockport podcast did kind of gloss over the fact that we had lost away from home as a kind of well, that happened. And I think that it's important. I've been particularly guilty of being a little bit blasé since we've been safe. Because we've been winning, it doesn't matter so much. But when you're losing, it does. And a lot of people went to Stockport, and a lot of people wanted to see us win from 2-0 up, and we ended up losing 3-2, and a lot of people weren't particularly happy about that. And then when your favourite Lincoln City podcast, and I'm assuming that if you're listening to it, we are your favourite Lincoln City podcast, kind of put a little bit of a whatever slant on that. I can understand how that's quite frustrating. So we should certainly still preview the 46th game of the season like it is the first game of the season. But as a prime hypocrite and walking contradiction, I've done absolutely no preparation. So I'll hand you over to the stat man, and he can take you through exactly what's going to happen on Saturday.
Oh, there's a particular reason why I dislike Wrexham in this very specific moment. It's because, as you say, I like the stats. It's not a surprise to anyone to know that I like to look at the numbers to try and help paint a picture and maybe fill in some of the gaps that you can't see with your eyes. And normally what happens over the course of 46 matches is that some of those teams that are running hot or running cold, over and underachieving at the start of the season, you tend to find that those numbers start to even out towards the end of the season. But similar to you, Gavs, Wrexham are a little bit of a contradiction in that regard because they are 8th in the XG table. They, in terms of a lot of their metrics, they would not suggest that they are a top 2 side. They would say that they would suggest that they're a top half, definitely playoff contending side, but not a top 2 side. However, you cannot only lose 8 matches, concede the second fewest number of goals, concede the lowest number of goals in the last half an hour of the match over the course of a season, concede the second fewest goals in the first 15 minutes over the course of a season by accident. So there's a bit of a contrast here, and the reality is they're promoted. They've come second in the league and they've had a fantastic season, even if the range of a lot of the kind of underlying performance metrics suggest that maybe they have overachieved a little bit in that regard. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about loads of stats, but the XG is always one that we touch on, even though we know it's not the most accurate of representations, but it's a useful statistic over the course of a season. So their XG is only the 13th highest in League One. So their XG is 54.1. They scored 65 goals, so they've overachieved that by 11 goals. Now, part of that is good fortune. Part of that is you have players finishing chances that were kind of lower percentage chances. That happens when you've got players that are better than the level or top performing in the level. Like Erling Haaland would always score more goals with his XG because he's one of the best finishers. But it also is pretty much equal the other way around. So their XG conceded is only the 8th best, yet they've conceded the second fewest number of goals. And the difference between their XG conceded and their goals conceded is about 10.7. So there's like a 21-22 goal swing in terms of their goal difference compared to what the XG suggests over the course of the season that there should be. So if this was happening in the first 10, 15 games, and I think I said this plenty of times throughout the season, I expect their results to align with those numbers eventually, but they haven't. They've kept at that level. They've kept winning. They've been brilliant in both boxes, and they're the most important part of the football pitch, and they're just really good at that. So, yeah, one of the teams that's frustrating for me because it goes to show that the numbers don't always tell the whole story. Sometimes they help see things that aren't there. Sometimes they hide things that are in plain sight.
Very good, very good. I was just trying to count the minutes there.
More to say. I just saw your little note at the bottom of the screen there, so I was gonna be quiet for a moment and let you say something.
I think that the Hollywood thing has actually masked what has been a really good season for Wrexham. But let's not make any bones about it. They are. We've said top 2 on budget, which, based on information that we've seen, we would assume to be correct. There was a Wrexham fan earlier in the comments said possibly top 4. So we're talking about an automatic promotion budget, and they've got automatic promotion. But they've done incredibly well at fighting and scrapping their way to automatic promotion. Lots of 1-0s. Phil Parkinson, let's not forget, had a big budget when he was at was it Sunderland?
Yeah.
At this level, and couldn't get them out of the division. So we are talking here about a manager who has form for not being a success at this level, but he has hit on the golden formula. And obviously, Tim was talking about some of their players there. Ollie Rathbone, good season pro at this level. Talk about Birmingham. They've been signing players from the Bundesliga and the Championship and all around the world. But Wrexham have done this actually on players that are at League One level or that they've brought through themselves. And you look at players, the likes of Ryan Barnett and Max Cleworth. Okay, Ollie Palmer and Paul Mullin haven't had a huge amount of input this season. But I've got begrudging respect for them. Yes, they've done it on a budget. I get that. Yes, they're a top 4 side in terms of budget, but that can't be a stick to beat a team with. We were a top 4 team in terms of budget when we won League One in League Two in 2018-19. So does that devalue what we've achieved? No, because we've still finished higher than 23 teams. And I think that there are teams who probably spent more in terms of transfer fees. There are teams who would consider themselves to be so-called bigger clubs who have got more attraction for players. There are young managers who have failed, who were supposedly the next big thing, the likes of Michael Duff, for instance. Whereas Phil Parkinson, a little bit of an older hand. 1 or 2 older players, by the way. Stephen Fletcher, one of the older players in the team. A lot of their early season success was built on the team that won or that came second rather in League Two last season. But again, I appreciate that they are where they should be in terms of budget to placement. But when you talk about things like the XG stats, for instance, in actual fact, they've had to fight and scrap for everything that they've got. And I kind of have a little bit of respect for that. It's almost like that mate of yours that has got a little bit more money. He's got all the designer clothes and stuff, but he's gone out and he's earned it. He's not been kind of handed it. Whereas with Birmingham, it was a gimme. All the Birmingham fans are celebrating, record points, blah, blah, blah. Half your team play international football. And, and I'm not talking like for Liechtenstein or Gibraltar or Ireland under 21s or whatever. They're playing for big clubs. They're playing for big countries. They're playing in big divisions. So I think that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney have had what is the Alex Ferguson, Jose Mourinho, Danny Cowley effect, in that they've taken all the pressure away from Phil Parkinson. They've taken all the pressure away from the players because all the news is on them, what they're going to do, how they're going to be in the Championship, what they're going to do to survive, them. And it's let the players quietly get on with a really good job, which I respect.
Good point. Yeah, and I think you mentioned how they've achieved it. It is grit, determination. Organisation is probably the word that jumps out to me here. I think the style of football that has got them the success that they have achieved is probably slightly different than you'd expect for most teams that would probably be profiling themselves to be an automatic promotion chasing team, like polar opposite to Birmingham. So, this isn't talking about Wrexham specifically. It's about previewing Saturday, isn't it? So what can we expect to see on Saturday? The first thing is, it sounds like the Wrexham players have been enjoying this last week. So, and because of that, you don't know what sort of sharpness they're going to have. You also don't know if Phil Parkinson is going to rotate his team and give players an opportunity to get 90 minutes and starts and games that haven't featured too much this season. So, but we're going to assume that's not the case. Now, 3-5-2 has been pretty much their standard go-to this season in some way, shape or form. Stylistically, though, this is not a team that we expect to go is going to press us too high. This is not a team that we expect to be keeping too much possession. They're going to be a team that's going to expect to kind of be very, very difficult for us to break down. But you know what? That's great for us because it's a test of what we've been not great at all season. And we've changed our shape. We've been a little bit more aggressive. We've been a little bit more creative in terms of attacking. We've also conceded a few more goals. So it'd be interesting to see how we approach it in that regard. But just a few things to kind of expect. So what have I got written here? So in terms of goals, they have scored the 7th most from open play, scored the joint 4th most from set pieces. So set pieces are strong for them, but have only scored 1 goal on the counter-attack. So counter-attacking and counter-pressing is not something that's a huge part of their game. So I suppose in terms of intensity, that's not really a huge part of their style. In terms of goals against, second fewest from open play, the fewest from set pieces. Our biggest strength this season has been our ability to score goals from set pieces. We scored 30. We scored, I think, 5 or 6 goals more than anyone else in the league from set plays. But Wrexham have conceded the fewest. So their organisation is great. And they've also only conceded 1 goal on a counter-attack. So their organisation, their shape is just really strong, really, really strong. And they're going to be really difficult to break down. Put in the most crosses per 90 in League One, the highest quantity of long balls per 90 in League One, and only the 15th highest number of short passes in League One. So that kind of paints a little bit of a picture. They're also 16th in terms of touches in the opposition box. So they're really efficient with the chances that they do create. But it's almost, if you're thinking that the majority of their chances come from crosses, and it's more about a volume, eventually one of those is going to go in if you've got the right players at the end, on the end of them, and a shot to kind of pick up the seconds. I can't see why they would step away from that style. I can't see why they'd step away from that tactic that's been so effective this season. So from an attacking perspective, I imagine them to focus a lot of their play down the flanks. They try and get their wing backs on the ball, and they try and get balls into the box with 2 centre forwards to aim at, and a couple of the eights to kind of pick up seconds on the edge of the box and crash the box as well. That's how they generally score their goals. And out of possession, they're going to be not necessarily low block, but more mid block, but really organised, really hard to break down. 3 centre backs, two full backs out of possession, a midfield 3 blocking off the centre of the pitch. It's going to be tough for us. But I think our aggression, our, I suppose, pace, and our a desire to play on the front foot, which I think has been really, really impressive over the last few weeks, actually could potentially be a real contrast to styles here. Very, very different to like a Birmingham versus Wrexham, but I think there are definitely some differences between our styles, particularly with our desire to maybe try and double up on the flanks now with our 4-2-3-1, might try and go 2v1 versus fullbacks now and then, or wingbacks now and then. Be interesting. I think this game is a bit more about mentality than tactics, though, to be honest with you. But in terms of style, we're probably unlikely to see a team that's going to want to come and keep too much possession. They may allow us to have the ball and ask us to break them down a little bit.
It's going to be like non-uniform day at the end of term. It's going to be a bit of a free-for-all. Could be like their home game against Barnet in their last season in the National League where they won 7-5. You never know.
It could be like that, yeah. It really could.
The last game of the season and the first game of the season are always a little bit of a basket case. And I'm looking forward to it because I am on the lash. I'm going to be drinking beforehand and afterwards, so that's going to be great. And as the Stacey West team will probably be in the fan zone for one afterwards before we move further into town. I want to pose a quick question. Like Chris, just as an observation, but Gary's shifting in his chair. Yeah, it's all right. Time-wise, I'm good. I can smell the burgers, Flossie. We've got burgers from the butchers at Rugby. I don't know anyone based in Lincolnshire, but the butchers at Rugby, run by a childhood friend of mine, Richard Spittles. Brilliant butchers. So when Wrexham came to us on the 3rd of May 2008, so bear in mind, it is actually going to be exactly 17 years since they were relegated from the Football League at Lincoln. Really interesting, the Lincoln team that day, right? Mm-hmm. And I bet if I said to you, name the goalkeeper 2007-08 who started in goal for Lincoln, I bet you wouldn't get it in a couple of guesses. And it's going to be dead air. Bollocks to you, whatever.
Was it?
How did you know that?
Genuine guess. I just thought it was the backup keeper of that sort of era. Oh, yes.
Was Aidan Duffy. What a guess. Yeah, Alan Marriott played his last game for us at the beginning of April, and Aidan Duffy stepped in. So, yeah.
I swear I haven't checked that. I swear on my life I haven't checked that.
So they went 2-0 up, Levi Mackin and Wes Baines. Steve Evans then scored an own goal, not that one, to make it 2-1. It was then 2-1 from the 39th minute until the 88th minute. Then they scored, then we scored, then they scored to make it 4-2. Do you want to know the rest of the team?
Yes, please.
And this is an indication, I think, of the decline. Bear in mind, a year prior to this, we've been in the playoff semi-finals against Grimsby. It was Aidan Duffy, Danny Hone, Lee Beavers, Gary Croft, Paul Green, Lee Frecklinton, Scott Kerr, Gary King, Jamie Forrester, Ben Wright, and Louis Dodds. and the bench was Nat Brown, Owen Warlow, Shane Clark, Danny Ngesson, and Mark Stallard, with Stallard and Brown unused.
Wow.
And you know what happened that summer? The Magnificent Seven came in. It was that summer.
And that really helps, didn't it?
Yeah. But you think that should have been Alan Marriott's final game, and the way he's treated still rankles on me. And people go on about, I know Ben's a big fan of Peter Jackson for personal reasons, and I respect that. But the way that, honestly, Alan Marriott, the way he was treated by us, he should have been on 400 plus appearances. Right. Well, I think that's more or less it, isn't it? Do we have anything else to say? Anything else to push? Anything else to talk about?
Well, just very quickly, you mentioned after the game on Saturday. This is got no vested interest in this other than I'm going, and it sounds really good fun. Myself and Ben, maybe Gary, we can convince him, are off to a gig at the Drill on Saturday night after the game. So we'll be in the fan zone for one after, and then we're off to the Drill to see like a mini festival. I think there's 5 or 6 bands. Hell's Ditch are one I particularly like. And then the headline act is a band called the 900. So people of a certain era may appreciate this. They're a cover band who cover songs exclusively featured on the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater video game series. It sounds like it's going to be jolly good fun. So, that's what we're up to after the game. If you weren't aware of it, tickets are still available. I think it'd be a good laugh. Drill's a great venue for live music, isn't it?
Oh, wow. Doors are at 6 o'clock as well.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't realise they were that early. So it really will be a quick one for you, won't it?
I guess the first band won't start till 6:30, 7ish.
Yeah, okay. Well, whereas I am heading out into town with Matt Ward, Dale Rowson, but the whole Stacey West team will be with us, as well as our guest pundit Emily, I think, is coming for a drink as well. So you can have a chat with any of us in the fan zone if you so wish. That was the final preview of the 2024-25 season. There's an awful lot riding on this weekend. Will I be able to handle my drink after running 26 miles last week? Will Chris be able to handle his drink with going to an event where the doors open at 6:30? There's a small matter of a game of football as well. It will be dominated by the Hollywood headlines. But we all know that the real issue is, can Michael Scabala better Mark Kennedy's points total from the 22-23 season? We'll keep our fingers crossed. But in the meantime, up the Imps.
Up the Imps.